Hello, my name is Charnette Stinnett. I am a student at Grand Canyon University, enrolled in a Master's of Sociology with an emphasis on education. Welcome to a mini presentation in comparison of George Herbert Mead and Robert Goffman. When we hear the name Robert Herbert Mead, let us think of the word act. Think of the word act for Robert Herbert Mead. And when we think of Erving Goffman, visualize a stage. Let us begin with George Herbert Mead. Mead was a sociologist who studied the behaviors of the acts of the mind. Mead believed that we are born without a sense of self until we take on the role of another. His theory was that our personality and social self derives from our social interactions. The two parts of self are the I and me. I meaning the individual awareness of how you see yourself. The me meaning the social self of how society sees you. Keep in mind, I and me are intertwined and are not independent of each other. On this slide, you will notice many faces in several different uniforms. Everyone may define themselves as possibly a mother, father, brother, aunt, or however you define yourself, while the generalized other may label everyone in a role based on the individual's performance and actions. The acts are impulse to stimulation. Perception reacts to stimuli, which reacts to impulse. Manipulation takes action. Consumption takes action to satisfy that impulse. Mead describes the social world in a fundamental impulse, which is positive and negative. Mead demonstrates how individuals are shaped by society using three acts. Preparatory stage. We learn through imitation of others. By play stage, it's a role playing with the use of symbols and gestures. Then there's game stage. We see more than ourselves in the world. We understand we are part of a whole. Our identity's I are our personal responses to our external stimuli. However, the me are always in constant performance. This performance is also known as the act, which refers to the stimulus as the response of the primitive aspect of this theory, including stages of impulse, perception, manipulation, and consumption. Moving on to the next sociologist, Erving Goffman. He used a metaphor we should think of when we visualize social interaction. Think about the world as a stage. Shakespeare says all the world is a stage and all the many players have their exits and entrances. Think about what that actually means. We have our exits and our entrances. Sociologist Goffman explains how the social world is like a stage in every social situation. We are engaged in a live performance which never ends. Similar to Shakespeare's play, one man plays many roles, meaning we change in and out of our roles on a daily basis. How do we apply this to ourselves at this moment? What role are you playing at this moment while you listen to this presentation? Are you an instructor, a parent, or a student? Goffman says we do not have any one identity, and there are no center or singular identity. We are forever performing for others. Each identity is a social construct of how we act or behave with our family is different from how we act in the public or in a classroom, for instance. If we are in a classroom, we act like that of a student. In doing so, we become the audience for the instructor who plays the lead role. In social situations, we behave in certain ways for our audience. we behave for our audience, this can sometimes dictate how our self-esteem and how we see ourselves. We seek validation through our audience. Equivalent to an audience which claps for gratification and excitement versus a frown out of discontent. Our behavior and attitudes are shaped by how society responds to us. These positive and negative stimuli allow self to either lose face or to continue to show the importance of satisfaction. The idea of face is imperative. When we lose face, this means an error has occurred and the perception of the individual changes. Basically, it's our actions which are inconsistent with the role, which causes embarrassment. Our sense of self disappears without engagement of others. We think of social interaction as two people in a conversation. However, Goffman recognizes there are many social interactions. It is not only two or more people, but it could be viewed as a group of people in an indirect conversation or interaction, I should say. One way is participation would be in a classroom. The student's main purpose is to listen and learn from the instructor. During this time, the instructor watches for cues from the audience, which are the students. However, when the students make a joke in the middle of a lecture, the dynamics of the class changes drastically. Another way of social interaction is a group of people at a party. No one person or person is focused on the other. This is indirect interaction. Have you heard of that slogan? This is an A and B conversation, see your way out. This is a key example of how conversations are formed. You're telling the other person not to interject until invited. When we think of a conversation, we think of many roles that we will take on. This occurs when we approach a person. We assess and label the individual based on how the person is speaking and is dressed. Goffman adds face. The most common things we do throughout life causes us to lose face. What we do and say can cause social perceptions to alter, meaning to be embarrassed. Perhaps we trip on the floor, or we simply misspeak on a topic. Suppose you meet the queen and she burps and chews with her mouth open. This would cause your perception of the queen to change. Everyday life is like that of a play. Think of drama. Our everyday life is like that, positive or negative. Goffman believed our identities are formed from interactions from each other. The process is how we hide and express ourselves. Most of us want to present ourselves in the best light. This is equivalent to our first impressions of an individual. Goffman believed in the front stage, such as how we project ourselves. Our backstage is an area where others do not see. Think of yourself planning on what you want to say before you teach on the first day of class. That would be your backstage. That individuals are like con artists. Each individual controls how others see us by our performance. While MEAD believe we act the way we do based on our interactions. Do you see similarities and differences between the two sociologists? I leave you with this question. Who are you, and how do you think others see you? Thank you.